In a small village between two big rivers, there lived a hard-working potter called Yash. He was very good at shaping clay, but carried a heavy burden no one could see. Years ago, his father had given him a special job, to take care of an old cracked clay jar. This jar, his father had told him, has been in our family for generations. It holds the wisdom of our ancestors. Yash respected his father's words and placed a jar on a zero wooden shelf in his workshop and never let it out of sight. As time passed, Yash became more and more worried about the jar. Every day he checked it, making sure no more cracks appeared. He never moved it too much, afraid it might break. Whenever customers came, he stood in front of the shelf, guarding the jar. It was as if the jar had become a heavy chain around his heart. One spring afternoon, a wise old monk walked into the workshop. He was traveling to the next town and had grown thirsty from his journey. He was dressed in simple robes and had a peaceful face. "Young potter, would you be so kind as to give me 2 glasses of water?" Yash quickly fetched the water and placed 2 clay cups in front of the monk. The monk drank slowly, savoring each sip. Then his eyes went to the wooden shelf. "You seem troubled," he said gently. "What is on your mind?" Yash hesitated, but finally said, "I am responsible for this family heirloom, but instead of feeling proud, I feel trapped. If it breaks, I will have failed my father and my ancestors." The monk nodded. "May I see it?" Yash hesitated, but finally took down the jar and placed it in the monk's hands. The monk studied the deep cracks, then, without a word, let it slip from his fingers. Yash gasped as the jar broke on the ground. His heart was racing with shock and anger. "Why did you do that?" he cried. "You have destroyed something precious." The monk knelt among the broken pieces, his face calm. "Look closely," he said. Yash looked at the pieces. There was nothing inside the jar. No scrolls, no secret messages, just dust. "But my father said it had the wisdom of our ancestors." The monk smiled. "And what did you learn from it?" Yash was silent. The weight in his heart was lifting. For years he had been afraid, thinking his worth was based on protecting something fragile. But now he saw the truth. Wisdom had never been inside the jar. It was in the lessons he learned, the skills he practiced, and the love he shared with his family. The monk stood up. Wisdom is not something you lock away in objects, and love is not something you carry as a burden. Let go of what's holding you back, and you will find freedom. With that, the monk walked away, and Yash stood among the broken pieces of the past. For the first time in years, he felt light, as if he'd been reshaped, not by clay, but by understanding. From that day on, Yash worked on his pottery with new energy, no longer burdened by fear. And when he passed on his craft to his children, he didn't give them a jar to protect. He gave them the wisdom to create their own. Many people in life make the mistake of holding on to things that no longer serve them, whether it's old grudges, past regrets that no longer make sense, or fears of change. They think holding on keeps them safe, but instead it holds them back. Just like Yash, they carry unnecessary worries, not realizing that true wisdom comes from learning, growing, and moving forward. The power of letting go can change everything. When we stop clinging to fear and the past, we make room for new opportunities, creativity, and real happiness. The past is important, but it shouldn't stop us from moving forward. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means understanding that life is always changing, and true wisdom comes from learning to move with it, not against it. True wisdom is not in holding on, but in knowing when to let go.